Welcome to We Should Run the AFL. I'm Wally.
And I'm Jez, and on next week's episode, we are going to do a whole episode of Love It, Hate It, and it's going to be all to do with our own season predictions. So, for example, you'll come up with your, might be your final final ladder, and I'm going to say whether I love it or hate it, and vice versa, and we'll do it for each other the whole episode, which could be really good or it could be incredibly boring and long, but we'll find out next week when we do it.
Very brief. It could also be great for our friendship, or it could be really terrible for our friendship as well.
It's make or break.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe it's not love hate. Maybe it's make or break. Next week's episode. That'd be good. Well, actually, that'd be interesting because that make or break brings up something that I saw maybe last week, and Kane Corns, who I actually really like. I really like the stuff he does. And he was saying he reckons this year for Collingwood is their biggest make or break. I think he actually said the biggest make or break year for any club in history is Collingwood this year. And he actually said, I reckon they'll go well, but he goes, if they don't, then they could fall off a cliff pretty quick. So make or break will be interesting. So yeah, we'll do that, and we're going to do the normal kind of stats, top 8, grand final, Brownlow, all that stuff. But we're going to do a couple of special We Should Run the AFL ones as well. So that'll be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. And then this week's episode, we are going to be talking about zones compared to man versus man. I was going to say versus, but it would have been zones versus man. And that would be really confusing. So
exactly. I love this one as well. And this is one that I find I get the place for zones. I get how they came in and all that sort of stuff, and looking at other sports. One of the most frustrating things I have as a fan watching a game is when your team is, let's say they're 10 points down with 5 minutes to go, and they're playing a zone and the other team is just chipping it around. And it's just like, pick someone up.
Just man up.
Pick someone up, please. Just man up. And that idea that I just think if they're in a zone and I'm kicking it to someone and they're 15 meters in the clear, it's a much easier kick than if I'm kicking at someone who's got a lead. And you've got to get the kick just right, that you can close them off and that sort of thing as well if you're man on man. And then it comes down to fitness as well as that, and staying on your man. And, when we grew up, and I know it's a different time, like you play junior footy, it's like everyone's got a man. All right, there's a ball up, who's your man? And I know they do the bit, but yeah, that zone and guarding space, especially in that time where you have to get the ball back, like you just have to, or the game's over. Oh, kills me.
Yeah, exactly. So just two things. First of all, when we say manning up and man on man, we also mean for the AFLW. So we're just using it as a generic term. But yeah, I think the man on man also obviously creates more contests, which is the best thing about AFL is the contests. Yeah. So if you can create more contests, then it's better. If you're going to keep the zones, generally speaking, there's going to be less contests.
Yeah, that's right. And there's nothing better than even like a bit of a kick or a miss kick, or you kick to a lead and it doesn't quite hit, and you've got two players running for that ball because they're so close to each other and man on man, like, someone doesn't have a sort of 20-meter head start. That's the greatest. Like, and just see them scrapping over the ball, like that's unreal. And you don't really see a lot of that.
No, exactly. And it's we want to see that. That's what you pay your money to see. You want to see who's stronger, who's the better footballer. And if you can win contested ball, and I know, our last episode was all about stats, but if you can win the contested ball count, it goes a long way to winning a game. And if you can create more contests and win more contests, well, that's only going to help your team, but also it helps it as a spectacle as well, I think. So yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for trying to reduce the amount of time that they play zones. I don't know if they can make rules around that or not. Any thoughts on whether something like that would be possible?
Rule interesting. I guess they could, but I kind of like as well that it comes down to tactics. It isn't a set thing. Like, it comes down to the teams and the players, and even I don't know if we ever really said. I guess we do a little bit. Like, if one team's playing a zone and the other's playing man on man, and I guess they do. If one's in attack and one's in defense, then it can be different. But yeah, I don't know about a rule. I think a rule might roboticize it a little bit. Is that a word? Roboticize? Whereas if it's just that sort of organic thing, and yeah, then because the other thing you don't often see is a team changing tactics. Like, if they're playing zone and it's not working, it's very rare they switch to man on man. I know it used to happen a little bit potentially, but now they'll just stay in the zone and it doesn't change. And it's like, well, it's not working. Like, just change it. And so, but they don't seem to. That plan B doesn't happen as much these days.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree also about the rule changes. But having said that, just to throw something out there, the VFA and the AFL, like when it used to be around, and the AFLW, as far as I'm aware, don't they have less players on the field? It wasn't like there were no wingers, like 16 or something. So,
yeah, 16.
And I'm not advocating for it in any way because I personally wouldn't like it, but just devil's advocate sort of thing. If they were to reduce the number of players, so there were 16 players, and maybe you didn't have the wingers, how would that impact zoning? Because you've got less players to actually implement a zone. So would that then force you to have to do more man on man, or would it make no difference? I don't know, but
there's kind of more space to guard, isn't it? So
yeah,
and that thing where there's that team defense where everyone's like sort of moving to the sort of center line. It's all in one half of the ground. Then I think they would kind of do that anyway and still block up that space. So yeah, but it might. And I think those sort of things are often just worth a try anyway in the preseason or whatever. Just try it and see. And I think they get pretty set. But I think that anything that can, again, I don't really want to force them to do it, but in terms of a spectacle, yeah, that one-on-one and is just great, because also there's nothing worse as well than seeing a team chipping it around. Let's say it's St Kilda versus Melbourne. St Kilda's chipping it, and you see a Melbourne player who's been, playing this zone guarding space, sprinting up to the mark and standing on the mark. It's like, well, it's a little bit late for that. and then you'll hear coaches say, yeah, we're a bit, what do they say? Like, we gave them too much leg rope. We're a bit loose on the zone, but they don't move closer. Like they still stand 20 meters away. And so it just leaves that space. So it's kind of, I again, get the zone, and there's obviously a sense and a tactic behind it and the reason they do it. And some teams do it and it obviously works. But if everyone's doing it and somebody's doing it better, try something different, and or have the players have that power, and maybe they do, I don't know, to stand a little bit closer. Like if you're just constantly running up to the mark and they're marking it, stand 5 meters closer. But again, it doesn't seem to happen. And we might be missing stuff. We obviously will be missing stuff, but it doesn't seem to happen that they adapt to that thing. Oh, this zone, the way we're playing this isn't working, but they will just keep doing it and hope it does work almost.
Yeah, they're pinning a lot on hope, aren't they? I wonder if a team or a club sort of went down the mantra of, we're not going to play zone, we're only going to do man-to-man. I wonder if that would impact not just their training, but also the types of players they would recruit. Because I remember there was a period in time where, I think it was in the 90s, where everybody wanted to get another Cooter. So everybody was trying to, recruit these athletes who, they were athletic, but they couldn't play football.
Yeah.
And then they sort of come back around now to, getting footballers, but most of the footballers these days are athletes anyway. So, but I wonder if they would go more down that athletic path. Players that can, cover the ground faster, and, like the Ed Allen sort of, big sort of prototype, 194 centimeters, every player's minimum 194 or something. I don't know. Like, I wonder if that would change things, if knowing that you've got to break the lines. So you've got to have the speed, and you've got to have the fitness to continuously be, playing that defensive man-on-man sort of thing. And I don't know. It's interesting.
I think it's a good question, a good point, good question. And would it change? And potentially, but then you get to the thing where maybe you get more of the Dane Swan, or in ice hockey, Wayne Gretzky, who says, I wasn't the fastest. He goes, I lost when they used to do their races around the rink type thing, he would lose it every time. But he went to where the ball was going to go, as opposed to where the ball was. And so even if if you're an athlete, but you're not, and when I say smart, I mean smart AFL playing wise, Aussie rules footy playing wise, I should say.
Footy IQ.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you don't have a high footy IQ, you're running to the wrong spots. It doesn't matter how fast you are, or how strong or anything of that. So so again, I think then if it is that sort of game, it comes down to that footy IQ, and it comes down to that, if one player's on another and one of them, like just gets where the play's going to go. It's happening here. So if I run 50 meters that way, then that's where the ball's going to end up, there or thereabouts. Then that becomes a whole different game as well, and becomes more interesting and tactical in a different way, where it's almost on the instinct of the players, and you'll see the players that rise to the top will be that have those real footy smarts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of, the topic itself sort of lends itself to lead into the next one we wanted to discuss, which was inside 50 players, or leaving a player inside forward 50. And how that would, first of all, impact the zones and the man-on-man. If you're, rather than having your last defender sort of getting the ball inside their defensive 50 and having all the time in the world to choose what they're going to do with it. And if you're playing that man-on-man, it means you're going to have to keep a player inside that 50-meter area. It's going to impact your strategies again and your tactics, around how you're going to do that, and what does that do in terms of opening up space behind you, and it asks a lot more questions, basically.
I think so as well, and sort of the flip of that is asked questions of the defenders as well. So now you have that full ground press where everyone runs up, or goes up to sort of the half forward line or the center line of the other team. If you just always leave a player in the forward 50, you always have your forward, and whether it's it might be a Charlie Kerner, or it might be a smaller player like a Jamie Elliott or whoever it is. If you say you're just in the forward, you don't leave the forward 50, or you don't go past the center square line. You don't go past the back of the center square in our forward line, because you often see it'll be that scrum down in the opposition's forward line. Someone breaks free, it comes out, they run out, take 2 bounces, and then stop, because they've got no one to kick it to. They've got to wait. Whereas if you've got someone there, stopping a forward on the lead when it's one-on-one is really hard. Like, you've got to be a really good backman to be able to judge where they're going to lead. That so often you see a player just breaking out and you hit them on the lead. But even just going in, and if you've got a smaller forward, kicking that sort of, as they say, that chaos ball, just kicking it almost along the ground rather than bombing it up high, then suddenly it becomes that one-on-one foot race to the ball. And if you've got a smaller forward, then that's thrilling, kind of seeing that, and you've got someone to kick to. Or even if it's a bigger forward and a bigger defender, kicking it up long, and suddenly you get that one-on-one wrestle match inside the forward 50, as opposed to just sitting and waiting and everyone's got to run past you, and then you've got to find someone. Like, it's like that. I think leaving someone in forward 50, it just means that suddenly scoring becomes a priority. And I know it is anyway, but you're always looking to have someone there to kick to and go. And then if the defender punches it, great, you're still all flooding forward to then get that ball once it's punched to ground. So it seems like a no-brainer to me, but there's that full ground defense that people do. And it's like, well, but if you leave someone in forward 50, that can free up one of their players to go forward. The player that's on them, great. Then I'm all alone inside forward 50. And if it comes out,
and surely on top of it, if you've got 17 players in your defensive half of the ground, zoning and defending like that, or if you have 18 or 17, surely it's not going to make that much of a difference, that one player. But that one player, having them in forward 50 or having, further up the ground, can make a huge difference for you getting that ball out, because every team builds that wall and they try to, contain and keep that ball inside their attacking area. But if you've got somebody on the other side of it, well, then they've got to rethink their tactics, how they're going to do it. Because if that kick goes over the top of the wall, then all of a sudden you've got a contest, and you might still have more numbers at it, but the forward who's alone, their role really is to just try and hold that ball up for as long as they can legally until they get some support. So all these tactics come into the play now.
Yeah, and it just changes the way they have to think about it. It would make it so exciting, I think, and just knowing that there's a player there, just waiting, and it just means the players breaking out of defence suddenly go, oh, we now know we can go. We can just bomb it long, and instead of us all having to run until he gets there, then we got someone coming forward as well, and that then leads to, if they get it and handball it as you're running past, suddenly you got the 50 clear.
Exactly.
And so, it just opens up so many options, I think, and again, whether or not it will work, obviously you're not going to get a goal every time just because there's a player there, but it just means you don't have to do that stop or suddenly stop and chip sideways, and then the other team's just flooding back, and then you're kind of done.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So
love it.
We're up to add remove. And
Yes.
we've gone differently this week with our ad remove, and we decided to not prepare anything for it. So we're just going to do it off the cuff. So, anything come to mind for you? Because I've got
Well,
one, but
okay. An add or a remove have you got?
yeah, I've got an ad,
An ad. Yeah, well, go yours first if you're on.
which has got nothing to do with the actual game itself.
Right, okay.
It's got more to do with the experience of the crowd at games.
Okay. Yep.
And they used to have it, and I think somebody may have commented it, I think after our first episode on this, and it reminded me of it. And I thought, oh, that's such a good idea. I should definitely bring that back. And I can't remember what they were called, but the food guys that would walk around with their tubs down the aisles and
pies.
yeah, exactly. And you'd be sitting in the middle of your row, and you'd pass your money up to, and everybody just pass your money along, and they'd pay the person, and they'd pass your food back, Like that was such an iconic part of football, and it'd be great. I know these days, it's cash free, so you probably have to pass your credit card, which is a bit less, ideal.
But no, it was awesome. And you'd get it would often be sort of, old adults, but often it'd be teenagers earning some, cash on the weekends, just going around selling it as well. And be like, hey, pie kid.
Exactly.
Come on,
exactly. And they'd walk around with records as well. And my mates and I, we used to have mate of mine, we used to have a thing where when we used to buy a record at each game, and we would refuse to buy it from anybody selling them who didn't spruik it. So if they didn't pull out records, like no interest. We'd ignore them until we found somebody who was actually spruiking and go, yep, we'll get from that one.
Yeah, so the spruikers, you want to bring back the spruikers.
Yeah, bring out the spruikers, bring back the food guys, with their tubs inside the ground. I think it's just a good part of it.
That's a really good ad. That's
Thank
really
you.
good. Yeah, love it. That's a definite love it. That'd be awesome. And it's that queuing up at quarter time or having to leave before the siren to make sure you don't have to queue up for your drink or your food or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It'll take that out of it a bit as well, and you still could, but don't have to. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you got anything come to mind for you for add or remove?
Add or remove. I mean, a couple of things I guess we've spoken about today in terms of definitely add that tactic of having a player inside the forward 50 is what I'd love to see, and that adaptability, I guess, as well. And just very quickly flipping back to the zone things, just one last thing on that as well, which to add is that flexibility. So and again, they may do this and I may not notice it, but there might be times where you go, quick zone. We've got a zone right now, as opposed to man to man, and the team just knows to flip if it's a certain game situation, or if the ball's coming out of their defense, you go straight to a zone if we kicked a point or whatever it is. So anyway, so that's that one. But in terms of add or remove, I would like to add. I actually like the idea, which I know they're trialing a lot of the thing in the footy, like the GPS kind of thing in the footy, which we mentioned very briefly last week, I think. And yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. I think it just takes, if it works really well, it takes a lot of the confusion out of it. You just know if it's a 15-meter kick. There's no worries about, I don't know how the info gets straight to the umpire instantaneously, but maybe once they work that out, it does, because that's taking that human bias out of it as much as we can, and that play on from a 15-meter kick where sometimes it looks like 20 and sometimes it's a mark when it looks like 8. And it's no fault of the umpires, it's guesswork. And I thought they did, looking at the picture behind you, I thought I heard someone say that the squares on the oval are about 15 meters. Like they did that so the umpires can kind of guess it. I don't know if that's right, but I remember hearing that somewhere. Okay, so the lines are about 15 meters. So that's great. But if you have that GPS in the footy, has it hit the post? Has it been touched? Has it gone 15 meters, whatever it is? Feels like that would cover that really well.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be a great one.
Remove? Got any removes?
I have a remove, but it's not really one that will ever happen. And it's again, it's not to do with
that's why we should run the AFL, Jess.
Well, this is more to do with the broadcasters. Okay. And I watch a lot of other sport, and I find that the commentary for AFL, they tend to feel like it's bad if there's any silence. So they feel like they need to fill that with constant talk. And sometimes you can just let the game speak for itself. And when you watch, like soccer, for example, they won't necessarily say, Salah picks up, gets the ball and he dribbles it forward. He turns back now. They don't tell you every single play when you're watching it because you can see it. They'll say Salah, and they'll say the next player and the next one, and there's a bit of silence in between. And I kind of feel, not all the time, but they've got to work out when those periods are. But I'd love there to be less constant commentary. I don't feel that it's needed. I feel like a lot of time it's just there because they are scared of silence and doesn't actually add to the product or add to the experience for the users, the viewers.
That's a really interesting one. I'm a little bit not opposite to that, but I like being able to see almost exactly what's happening in the game and to know what they're doing, and they've handled this and that. So it's a little bit different for me. What I don't like on that, and I'll have this as a bit of a remove as well, where the commentators, where especially if you're listening on the radio, which you probably don't do as much these days, but when you are, but even when they go on a bit of a tangent and they're just talking about stuff that kind of isn't the game, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Like, where is the ball? Or you'll just turn on the radio, or again, TV doesn't matter. If you turn on the radio and 5 minutes later, you don't know what the score is. You don't know how long the quarter's gone for. Like, a bit more continual updates of that sort of stuff. So I'd like to remove just the kind of general chatter, and I get it. And I know it started a little, a while back where the commentary became more the entertainment, and it's like they'll start having a bit of a joke and talking about this, and the ball's been bounced. It's just like, what is happening? What is happening? So I'd like to remove that while the game's going. Just let us know what's happening. Yeah.
So basically, just some changes to the way they commentate games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, commentate and even I'll quick on around about this as well. But like, even when I'm watching the footy, sometimes it's like this telecast. Like, again? They'll flip to someone sitting on the bench talking on the phone, but the game's going on. It's like, I don't care. Yeah. I literally don't care if they're on the phone. Show me the game.
Exactly.
And I get it. Even have that in that little square down the bottom. That's fine, or not. I don't care. Just I want to know what's happening in the game. And that's the biggest thing, I think. Remove the stuff that is peripheral.
I've got someone at the door.
Do it.
I'll be one moment.
I'm going to rant about the TV for just a little bit longer. No, I actually love watching footy on the TV, and I as a whole do love the commentary. But yeah, I think that thing where it goes away from the actual sport itself, which you need it at certain times. And if there's a break in play, that's great. Talk about it. If it's quarter time, if there's something else happening, talk about that. But when the actual game's in play, then it's just really nice to be able to see what's happening and be able to hear what's happening at the same time. That photo, which is where Jez was actually from 2024, a game at the MCG, which is it really is just, I don't know. I haven't been to every ground. I've been quite a few grounds in Australia for the footy, and I just love the MCG. It's amazing.
So what did I miss?
I was just saying how I love the watching the game. I love listening to commentary, but just sort of finalizing that. And they're saying that photo behind you was from a game last year, and just how the MCG is just, when it's pumping, it's just the greatest stadium to be in. I love it. The energy in it is incredible.
Doesn't necessarily look like it in this image, though. There's a lot of empty seats there.
There was, and that's good. And I'm finding that happens lately as well, where that was, obviously you can see some of the players out there, and there wasn't that long before the start of the game, but there ended up being about, I think it was about 60 odd thousand. It was Collingwood Port. So again, not the biggest crowd, but it ended up being 60 or 70, which is more than half full. But everyone comes kind of late these days. Like, you'll be there half an hour before the game when it used to be packed, and you'll get there now, there's no one there, which leads us into our love-hate almost too.
Well, it's because they're lining up for food, but if you bring those guys back, it won't be a problem,
Exactly. Now we better wind it up. We're on about the 25-ish minute mark, and that was our aim, and we're almost right on it. But our final love-hate is curtain raisers before the game. So before the actual AFL, the Collingwood Port or whatever, back in the day, they used to have the Collingwood versus St Kilda reserves before Collingwood St Kilda game. And it used to be awesome to go and see the young kids coming through. And I know there is the VFL now, but to actually have it played on the MCG before the main game. Love it or hate it?
I love it. I know that one of the main reasons was, I think they don't want to dig up the turf before the main one. I get that, but I love it. I think it's so much more fun. You'd be happy to get there an hour beforehand, and you watch all these young players coming through and get to see what they're how they're progressing and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm all for it. I love it. Yourself?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just love it as well. And you go along and to see like if there's a player coming back from injury and you're there and you see them playing before the game as well, getting those reserves games in, it was awesome. And yeah, just kind of starts the buzz. It's like the support act before the main band comes on. It just gets that little, even if there's not much of a crowd, and every now and then you'd watch and there'd be a player that just stands out. It's like, oh, can't wait to see him coming through because you can just tell. So yeah, no, absolutely love it. Bringing back the curtain raiser. And Jez, it's why we should run
the AFL.